Welcome to Season 4 of the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Larksong Enterprises. I'm your host, Elizabeth Diakos. I'm a career transition coach who guides overwhelmed teachers through a 5-step process out of education and into a life they love. In this season, we'll be meeting experts from many different sectors who help people to change careers, as well as a few ex-teachers who forged a pathway into something new. I'm sure it won't surprise you to learn that what keeps people in teaching when they'd rather leave is often financial pressure. That's why today's show is sponsored by Chris Carlin, financial planner and mortgage broker from Master Your Money Now. Chris can help you sort out your cash flow, pay down debt, and plan your financially strategic exit from teaching, making sure you take good care of everything you've worked so hard for. Chris understands personal insurance cover and can help you to make a successful claim so you don't have to deal with the insurance company yourself, a huge relief if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed by money concerns. Chris is not about taking risks. He's careful to help you keep your money safe, and his fees are very reasonable. He can even help you plan for retirement. Chris cares for the caring professions, teachers and nurses, helping you to shore up your financial resources so that you'll be in a good position to leave when you're ready. Go to masteryourmoneynow.com.au to book a free 30-minute chat with Chris Carlin and master your money now. Episode 1. Hi everyone and welcome to the show. And on today's show, I'm very pleased to be interviewing Hunter Leonard from Silver and Wise. Welcome to the show, Hunter.
Hey Elizabeth, nice to see you.
So, Hunter, you help people to set up a business and you do business coaching and you help mature people who want to start a business or plan their future of their work. How and why do you do that? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, look, it started out when I was actually on a bit of a journey to expand my consulting business, and I found out some statistics on ageism. And it really inspired me to take what we know and sort of turn it into another business and a mission to help mature age people who are facing that particular ism. There's plenty of isms. Ageism is probably the biggest of them because it affects all of us at one stage or another. Mm. And so, yeah, I had a lot of experience working with business owners, and we've done a lot of surveys and a lot of work on developing business strategy and marketing strategy for those clients. And so I decided to turn that into a new business to help mature age people who wanted to start their own business, because quite a few do once they kind of get into that issue of suffering from ageism or experiencing it, and they can't get another job, or it takes a long time to get another job, or maybe they're just sick of their job. But yeah, it's another adventure that they can go on, and quite a large percentage of people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are actually now thinking about having their own gig and doing their own thing. So. Yeah.
So a lot of the clients I work with are finding that they're unable to get another job or even an interview because even if they don't put their age on their resume, you can tell by when they started studying, that any number that started with 1980s or something, they're like, oh, well, it's a pretty clear picture. And so then it makes it really difficult for them to sometimes get another job, or people say, like, you're not going to be in it for the long haul, or you're not going to be able to bring value if we bring you into our organisation. And so then they kind of go, okay, well then if that's not going to work, what's next? Or they might just hate having a boss. I mean, I talk to so many teachers who have no agency in their career, so they're assigned to a year level they don't want to teach, or a time fraction they don't want to work, under, and they realise, they've actually got no say at all in how their career plays out. And so then they think, okay, well, how can I take control again? All right, so you've written a few books, and actually, I did have them here. I think I've moved them, but do you want to tell us about your books and the process of writing a book? Because I think people will really be interested.
Yeah, sure. Look, Look, I guess back in 2009 when I wrote my first book, I was kind of a reluctant author to be honest. I had a client of mine, I was doing a series of seminars with him, and we were traveling around the country doing these seminars for business owners. And at the time, about halfway through these, I think it was 17 seminars that we did in a couple of weeks. So it was a bit of a roadshow.
Wow.
He kept saying to me, I really think you could put your presentation into a book. And I was going, I don't want to put it in a book. I'm not really a writer. And anyway, he mentioned it a few more times, and I started thinking about the idea, and I thought, well, actually, you know what, wouldn't mind giving that a crack. And just as I started thinking about that, he said, look, if you write the book, I'll put a testimonial on it for you. And he was the leader of one of the large banks in Australia, so it was pretty cool to have somebody of that ilk say that they would write a testimonial for me based on the content. So that was the first book, which was a marketing. But more recently, I've written a couple of books on this whole idea of ageism and the paths that mature age people can take as a result of it, because it does exist. So the first thing I'd say to your listeners is they're not alone. There's a lot of people that experience this issue in their 40s and 50s and beyond.
Yeah.
For women, it's actually earlier because they get the double whammy of sexism and ageism. So those two intertwine. And basically, I write books because I want to share my experience, my tips, the tools that we use with other people in a form that is, inexpensive for them to access. So I don't write books to hide half the secret, if you know what I mean. So I don't give away half of it in the book and expect people to then come and have me as a coach to get the rest of it. I really just share the whole lot. And then if somebody's a self-starter, they can then read the book and they can just go for it using the tools and experience that we've had.
Yeah. So I so your second book as an audio book while I was out walking, which was awesome. Oh, okay. That made it, really accessible. I didn't even need to stop doing what I was doing. I could actually, listen to it while I was walking along. So, and I understand you've just recorded the audio for your first book so that you could make that an audio book as well. I think when we spoke.
Yes, I have. And, yeah, and that'll be the process from now on, is to have both formats available, because it's just that a lot of people do like to just listen to the book rather than read it, which is fine. So I'm more than happy to make it accessible in whatever format is available.
So tell us about both books, like the content a little bit, like a brief, not the whole book obviously, but just a little brief overview of each book.
Yeah, I can start reading now, and 4.5 hours later. No, I'm just joking.
Like 16 hours long.
The first book, the longest podcast in history. Well, the first book I wrote was based on all of our research we've done. So we'd surveyed 10,000 business owners over the last decade or so. And we found that there was 8 key things that they ran into as a challenge in running a business. So the things that caused them most concern and the things they had to work on in order to be successful in business. So I turned that into the first book, which was for any mature age person who wanted to start their own business and needed to understand how to be a business owner, because many of these people have been employees all their life, and so they don't really have the skills of running a business, which is a much broader set of skills. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it's a broader set of skills than most people might have.
And what's the title of that first
10,000
book?
surveys.
Title of the first
that's
book?
called Generation Experience. Yeah. So that's called Generation Experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the theme of this idea that this generation has a lot of experience and wisdom to share through the running of the business. The second book is called The Experience Equation, and that's more for people who might not have really decided that they wanted to start a business yet. So they're still thinking about what's their future plan. And it's really a process. Again, I base all my books on really deep research. So I interviewed 300 mature age people. And from those interviews, I found that there was some gaps in the way people planned their future. So I wrote the book just around helping them to give them a methodology on how they could plan their future. In other words, just creating a personal plan for themselves based on their skills and their values and their passions and the things they want to achieve in life.
Yeah. And I think that's so valuable, because often we kind of get on the treadmill. And I was talking to a teacher just before we got on this call. She was on a triage call with me. And I said to her, you get on the treadmill and then either you sort of fall off at the end, when you're about to retire, or worse, you wake up one morning and just think, I just can't do this anymore. and there's no plan in place, and there's no sort of prospection about what is it going to look like for me to stop doing what I'm doing and do something different. And they don't even know where to begin the process. So I think it's great that you've, created something that is a bit of a guidepost to how to do that. So
thank you. Yeah. And look, there's a lot of things going on, at the moment in the world. Work is changing. The pandemic has changed it again. And so it does take an individual plan in order to make sure you can secure your future, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as ageism goes, so that's something that I think people are encountering in the workplace, but they're not necessarily noticing it, or they don't realise that's what's actually happening. Or they'll go to a job interview and they don't get the job, and they think it's because I wasn't the best candidate, or because I was too experienced or not experienced enough, or whatever the reason, and they might not realise that there's an age factor happening there. How do you actually recognise that?
Well, it can actually be quite difficult to recognise it, because the companies where ageism is being perpetuated, if you like, and it does exist. The first thing I'll say is it does exist. It's been proven by the Human Rights Commission and also the Australian Human Resources Institute in the research that they've done. But it is illegal. So you're not allowed to be ageist in recruiting. So those companies that wish to only employ younger people have become very good at hiding that behaviour. And they'll use code. The code words might be, you're overqualified, or do you feel like you've got enough energy for this job, or we needed somebody with a bit more enthusiasm, or there's a whole bunch of things that people report hearing. And while you can't necessarily then take that company to task on the basis of it, it is certainly an issue. And look, it's something we have to fix, because we live in an aging population. So it means that there are going to be more mature age people working in the future. Doesn't matter whether we like that or not. It's irrespective of the fact that most of our population is going to be more mature. Therefore, we're going to have a workforce which is skewed more to an older age. So we kind of have to, as organisations, have to get used to that fact, and have to knock off this stereotyping of mature people, which happens to say they're not technologically savvy, or they don't have enough energy, or they don't have enough enthusiasm, or they're going to be more expensive, or whatever other words they're using to sort of give themselves a reason for not choosing someone based on their best fit for the job.
Yeah. And I find that's so fascinating. Like, the idea that they would say that they're not enthusiastic enough. Like, what does that even mean? Like, that's just, you could be not enthusiastic and be 25. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it's not that they're saying that they're not enthusiastic. It's more that they're saying, you're too old for the job, but we don't want to say that.
Yeah. Of course, they're not going to admit it, but it's just such a weak excuse. Okay. All right. So then, given that there is an aging population and they're facing this this difficulty, what should people take into account if they want to set up their own business so they don't have to worry about all that other stuff anymore?
Yeah, look, the main thing I say from an individual perspective is the individual themselves has to understand their value, and they have to realise that they actually do have some value and experience. And most people who've worked for 20-odd years have got some experience and wisdom in something. So don't believe the guff going out there that they don't have wisdom, and start with that idea that you have a set of skills that you can actually apply to the workforce. And whether it's being an employee or whether it's starting your own business, you can use that experience and wisdom to create the future. It may mean that there are certain things you might need to know. So if you're going to start a business and never run a business before, okay, you might need some skills in running a business. That's okay. But don't buy into the fact that somebody says, well, you're going to need to go and retrain yourself in, digital marketing or coding websites or IT skills, because, really there's plenty of people who can do IT. in a business, we can have an IT person, and we might just need to know how to use a specific program that we're entering our data into. Maybe you have to learn that. That's fine. But I think this stereotyping of saying that people in their 40s and 50s are not technologically savvy is kind of crap anyway, because most of us have mobile phones and we use 20 odd apps on our phone to do all the things we need in life anyway. So I don't feel that the workforce is any more difficult than that in terms of using maybe a customer relationship management system or a database program or a HR system or an education system. They're all relatively easy to use. And I think we can knock somebody out just because they're 50 and say, well, they don't know anything about technology.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, we've had to adapt. So
it's a case of assessing your own skills and saying, okay, who values that, and how can I put myself in the best place to be able to exchange that value with someone, whether it's as an employee or whether it's running your own business. It's all about this idea of exchanging what you have as a skill for some remuneration of some sort.
Yeah. So if someone did decide to set up their own business, what would be, like, if they were going to do like freelancing or project work or something like that, what would be the first, say, 3 steps in a nutshell? I know that's a huge question. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it is a big question. But look, there is some relatively simple and straightforward steps that you need to invest some time in. The first one is really mapping out what you're good at and what you love doing. So your skills and your passions. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is finding the marketplace for that. So it might be that that's online in one of these freelance sites that exist. So there's Expert 360, there's Upwork, there's Fiverr, there's a few other places where somebody who wants to freelance their skills can go to.
Yeah. They're not very well paid. Sorry, they're not very well paid gigs usually, though. Is that fair to say?
It's probably fair to say on Fiverr and Upwork that they're probably skewed to overseas labour, which is a lot lower. Yeah. But Expert 360 is quite good, and they can be quite, good hourly rates and good projects that can be picked up depending on the person's skill set. But aside from the freelance sites, if you like, really setting up a freelance or a contracting business, it's more about thinking, well, who are my customers that I can reach, whether I can reach them physically, putting aside lockdown issues. If I can reach them physically in my local area or in my local region, how would I do that? And being a freelancer is a bit like running your own business anyway. It's about finding customers and surveying them as to what they might need and want. Most of your clients are teachers. So teachers have these fantastic skills in being able to help somebody understand the topic. It probably doesn't really matter what topic it is. They have this skill of being able to put together a lesson plan and take somebody from not knowing anything about it to being able to know something about it.
Yeah,
that's a broader skill that can go beyond teaching children. It can be about teaching adults. It can be about teaching people in a workplace. It can be about putting together courses for somebody in a workplace to teach their staff how to do something. So it's thinking about the broader application of what you know and do beyond what you've done in the past. And it's the same for marketing people. It's the same for accountants. It's the same for any number of professions or people who've done things in the past as an employee. There are ways to find somebody who needs what you need in a freelance sense as well, or on a project-based sense, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So finding out who you're going to serve is always the issue, isn't it? Because everything we do is solving a problem for somebody. So
that's right.
Exactly. I help teachers work out what they're going to do next. And so solving the problem of having either not enough options or feeling like you have none, or having so many that you can't decide between them. And so that's often that creative process is around that. What else do you need to do if you're going to? So if you're a freelancer, you still have to. You're like a consultant. You still have to have you have to set up a business. You can't just rock up. Like you have to have here in Australia, you need an ABN, or, you need to be able to do business. So, and take money, be able to take payment. So you've got to link your bank accounts and all those things. Is that what they need to worry about next? Is that the next step about how do you get money? Like how do you actually physically get people to make a payment to you? Like, what should they be worried about second?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about any of that until you work out whether there's a market for it. So you've got your idea of what your skills and your passion are, and you've got a sense of who might be the customer. The third thing I do then is talking to enough of those customers to see that what you've got is of value to them and to find out what that value might be.
Right.
So the stuff of setting up an ABN and a bank account, that's all, it's small importance compared to understanding if there's actually a market for what you're going to do. And look, people might think that it's, you try, okay, I'll go for the magic bullet. I'll try and find just someone to give me the work. That's not the way being a freelancer is going to be in the future. It's really about you creating your own market, understanding your customers. And if you're willing to put in some effort here, then you can actually come to a point where you can have good financial security because you've created this idea of a market between you and a set of customers. You've found out who values you, and then you can continue to expand the number of people that are like that, those people that you surveyed, if you like. So, yeah. And it's one of the missing ingredients from many small businesses when they first start is they don't survey enough customers to understand there's some value for what they're trying to do and that it's actually realistically going to give them the money that they need to earn.
Yeah.
As a business owner to fund their life, if you like. But in my view, if a mature age person is sending off hundreds of resumes to try and get a job, that's a lot of effort. So maybe just redirect some of that effort to understanding what other alternative markets you can have. It's not that much more effort, if you know what I mean. But it's effort that's going to lead to you being much more in control of your future.
Yeah, that is such a great point. Like, I know my very first job application took me 16 hours to write. By the time I left, fully left, it was about a 45-minute max, including the cover letter, because I had so many options to choose from that I'd written that I could just cut and paste pretty much, and then tailor it to the job. But it was still, I was sending out applications regularly to all kinds of, trying to go to a different school and then also trying to get a job in a completely different organisation. Some of those jobs were training jobs, and just for the Australian audience, they often wanted me to have the certificate for in workplace training and assessment, even though I was a teacher, they didn't care about that. They still wanted me to have the Cert 4. And so my advice would be if someone if they're trying to get a job as a trainer and they want to work in that space, just bite the bullet, spend $2,000, go into the 8-day course and get it out of the way, because it was actually a big stumbling block for me to get a job in TAFE or any of the training sector positions, including the not-for-profit sector. So I ended up working with a refugee service. That's how I ended up getting out. But initially I was applying for these jobs that I just couldn't get. That was the one hurdle that I, at least at the time, felt was an issue that was stopping me from getting getting a look in, after I sort of, beyond the interview, they would say, oh, but you haven't done this. And I'm like, I'm a teacher. And they, well, we don't care. Yep. So yeah, I think it's a small price to pay to make yourself much more widely sort of desirable, I think. If I was going to do it all again, I'd do that.
yeah, for sure. And look, the point you made there also is this idea that you, particularly as a freelancer or a business owner, you're also investing in yourself. So don't forget that idea that if you're the person that's driving most of the revenue, then whatever skills and abilities and things you can offer as the business owner are very valuable investments for yourself. So yes, it's an 8-week thing or a $2,000 investment, but maybe that then generates $100,000 worth of income once you speak to some customers and say, hey, yes, we'd love you to have you train. You've got a Cert 4. Yes, I have. Fantastic. We'll engage you to do this program for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it really is a case of this idea of researching and thinking and sort of being a bit broader, thinking about what you do know and don't let people tell you what you don't know. Focus on what you do know and what you can do is a really important thing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. Okay. So if someone wanted to work with you, what would that look like?
Well, the first thing, I created books and I've created courses, and I also coach people. But the first way people can access the books, and they can read them, and they can also do small courses that we've created as well. But we also coach people, and we try and make that accessible. In other words, we have small coaching sessions that we can do for people, and we have ongoing. It depends on what people need. But what I try and do is I try and make our knowledge accessible in the books and in our courses, so somebody can access it, for a reasonable cost. But if they want more help, then they can access myself or one of my advisors or coaches. So I've as part of my business, is I'm trying to teach people how to be mature age business coaches. So I've taken people who've come out of business or running businesses, and I'm teaching them how to actually advise other people how to run businesses.
Right.
And they're all mature age people as well. So I'm trying to create my own group of mature age people helping mature age people, if you like. So
nice. Yeah.
Part of our approach to it as well. And I also run webinars and do workshops and speak at various conferences and other things as well, just to sort of get this message out that mature age people do have value. Their experience and wisdom as something that can be exchanged for good financial security. And that there's three ways of doing it, whether it's as an employee, a business owner, or a freelancer. There's multiple options. The one thing we don't want is any of these really smart, experienced, engaged people to be sitting on the sidelines doing nothing, because it's not good for them and it's not good for the broader economy either.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one thing the pandemic has taught us is that there's still money out there. Like, even if it comes from your government, who's, propping up the economy for a brief period, there's money. It's somewhere, so it's just tapping into the market that is going to appreciate and value what you bring to the table. I think that's, that's really, really important to shine a light on that's the key to becoming someone who is going to be able to sustain their work. So what does a day look like for you, Hunter? What's a day in the life of Hunter Leonard?
A typical day. Well, it consists of three things mainly. One is servicing my clients. So I have a couple of businesses, so I'm always working with business owners on either their marketing strategy or their business strategy. Mm-hmm. If I'm not servicing a client, I'm doing the other parts of running my business, the administration, the strategic planning, the other elements that we coach others into. So I use my own coaching methodology to run my own business, just as an aside.
Yep.
And if I'm not doing that, I'm writing. So I'm writing my next couple of books at the moment. So they're important.
You're writing two more books at the moment.
Two more books at the moment, yes. So that's number 8 and 9.
Wow. What are they about?
A little bit more time. One of them is about the mature age economy, and it's a bit of a broader book on how governments and organisations can support a more mature workforce.
Right.
So there's a little bit of advice for individuals in there, but it's more about talking about what governments and organisations can do. And the other one's a strategy book. It's like trying to make this idea of strategic planning or strategy accessible to people, because a lot of people see it sort of as out of reach or complex or a little bit too theoretical or esoteric, if you like. If you read a lot of the strategy books, they're written by university professors and they're more written for theory than they are for practice. So I'm writing a book on how I use various strategic tools in my business on a day-to-day basis and trying to write it in plain English so it's accessible.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I think I might be your first customer for that one. All right. Yeah. That sounds, and do you have any hobbies? I know you're in lockdown now, but normally what would you do for fun?
Yeah, well, for exercise, I love bushwalking. So, I'm in Sydney, so we have beautiful bushland all the way around near where we live, which is fantastic. I play the guitar and perform a bit with music, and I like cooking and photography. So I've got plenty of things to keep me busy, although I can't necessarily do the bushwalking at the moment. I can do everything else. So
right. That sounds like a very rich, full life.
Yes. Yeah. You got to fill it up with stuff you love, otherwise you leave space for things you don't.
Yep, fair enough. All right, so you're a guitarist, so you must have a favourite song. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, look, that was a good question, actually, that you sent me, Elizabeth. I like that one. Look, being a guitarist and playing, I have lots of songs that I love, but I thought I'd give you a quirky one, and that's a song from The Jungle Book, which was my first favourite song as a 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Bare Necessities, which is sung by the bear with the man cub in Jungle Book. So Bare Necessities is one of my favourite songs to play on the guitar and also to listen to.
Right. Okay. I well remember that song. And so, what was it? Is it the tune or the lyrics? Like, what was it about that really resonated for you?
The thing I really like about it, I mean, as a kid, it was obviously the lyrics and a bear, running around. Because my nickname as a kid was Yogi, because I had this furry jumper that my mum had made for me. So I wore it everywhere. So I got this nickname of Yogi. But I loved the music and the rhythm when I was a kid. But as an adult, when I listen to that song, I think, well, it's just really just about the simple things in life, which is kind of cool. You can get by on some pretty simple things, and being in lockdown, it kind of reminds you of the fact that it's the simple things that count. Having some good food, having your family, having a bit of exercise when you can. The rest of it is, you run your business to achieve that. You don't run your life to sort of run a business, if you know what I mean. So.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Hunter, for coming on the Get Out of Teaching podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Oh, you're most welcome, Elizabeth. I'm very happy to help.
If this is the kind of conversation you'd like to have, here are some ways we can make that happen. You can connect with me via my website, larksong.com.au, or join the Get Out of Teaching Facebook group, or send me a message. You don't need to stay stuck in a job that makes you miserable. I offer a free 10-minute triage call to people who are ready to explore possibilities for the future. So let's have a chat. You've been listening to the Get Out of Teaching podcast. Please share it with your teacher buddies, and for show notes and other resources, visit larksong.com.au/podcast.